In a towering glass building in the heart of the city, the offices of a large company buzzed with activity. Bright lights shone on polished floors, and behind shiny desks, employees typed and talked, all trying to meet tight deadlines. At the very top of this company stood its CEO, a man named Richard. Richard was confident, maybe too confident. He walked with a proud step, wearing expensive suits and a smile that rarely reached his eyes. People in the office knew him as ruthless. He didn't care about feelings, only results. If someone wasn't good enough or didn't fit in, Richard made sure they knew it. In the same building, quietly moving through the halls, was a janitor named Miguel. Miguel was a quiet, humble man who worked late hours cleaning the floors and emptying trash bins. His English wasn't perfect. He spoke with a strong accent, a soft reminder that he came from a faraway place. Most people barely noticed Miguel. He was invisible to them, just part of the background noise of the busy office. Yet, beneath that quiet presence, Miguel carried a weight that no one in the company could see. The tension in the workplace was thick, the kind that made people afraid to be themselves. Richard's sharp eyes often caught those who looked different, and his cold smile could cut deeper than any words. Miguel walked the halls carefully, knowing the world above was not made for someone like him. One Monday morning, the entire company gathered in the sleek conference room for a big meeting. The air was filled with the usual mix of excitement and nervous energy. Employees chatted quietly, waiting for the CEO, Richard, to take the stage. Miguel was there too, but not as a guest. He was quietly cleaning the floor near the back of the room, making sure everything looked perfect before the meeting started. As Richard stepped up to the microphone, the room fell silent. His voice was loud and clear as he began talking about the company's goals and how everyone needed to work harder to succeed. Suddenly his eyes landed on Miguel. With a smirk, he stopped mid-sentence and pointed toward the janitor. "Look at Miguel over there," Richard said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I can barely understand a word he says when he speaks. Maybe if he worked on his English he'd do a better job cleaning up." Some people in the room laughed, but the laughter sounded forced and uneasy. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure if they should join in or stay silent. Miguel froze for a moment, his hands gripping the mop tighter. He didn't say a word, but his eyes showed the sting of the insult. His cheeks flushed with a mix of shame and pain. Richard smiled broadly, clearly pleased with himself. He believed that mocking Miguel's accent would make him look strong and straight-talking, the kind of boss who wasn't afraid to speak his mind. To him, this was a power move, a way to remind everyone who was in charge. But what Richard didn't see was how deep the wound was. Miguel didn't just hear the words, he felt them inside. The room filled with laughter and applause suddenly felt cold and heavy for him. The moment left a mark, one that would change everything for both men, though neither knew it yet. After that meeting, Miguel felt like he was carrying a heavy weight everywhere he went. The laughter and the stares stuck with him, even as he returned to his work. Every step felt harder, and the bright office lights seemed colder than before. He kept to himself, doing his job quietly, but inside, a storm of shame and sadness raged. English wasn't Miguel's first language. He had learned it bit by bit after moving to this country years ago, working hard to understand and be understood. It was never easy. Simple conversations could feel like puzzles, and sometimes, he worried people didn't take him seriously because of his accent. Still, Miguel showed up every day, sweeping floors, emptying trash, fixing small problems, all with care and pride. At home, Miguel was a different kind of hero. He supported a family who depended on him, his wife and 2 young children. He dreamed of giving them a better life, one where they wouldn't have to struggle the way he did. Sometimes, after long shifts, he would sit quietly and think about what the future could be. He wanted more than just to be invisible. Around the office, people noticed the change. Some coworkers felt bad when they saw how hurt Miguel was. They respected his hard work and gentle nature, but fear held their tongues. Richard was powerful, and no one wanted to risk their jobs by standing up. So, the silence continued. Miguel's loneliness grew, but so did a quiet strength inside him. He didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear: the world wasn't always fair. especially to those who didn't fit the mold. And sometimes, the smallest voice carries the heaviest truth. Most people saw Miguel as just the quiet janitor, the man who cleaned the floors and never said much. But there was a story behind those tired eyes that no one at the office knew, a story that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. Years ago, Miguel wasn't a janitor. He was a respected executive in a large, international company. His work took him all over the world, and he was known for his sharp mind and honest heart. He spoke several languages fluently, commanded respect in every boardroom, and had a promising career ahead of him. Many admired him as a leader, a man who could change things for the better, but everything changed in a heartbeat. Miguel became the victim of a betrayal. Someone close to him, a trusted colleague, spread lies and rumors that destroyed his reputation. A scandal followed, one that Miguel didn't cause but couldn't prove his innocence against. The company turned its back on him. Doors that once welcomed him slammed shut, friends stopped calling. The life he built crumbled into dust. In the months that followed, Miguel disappeared from the public eye. He left the city, took on a new identity, and moved far away, seeking peace and a fresh start. He wanted to forget the past and protect his family from the pain, but bills still had to be paid, and a new life had to be built from the ground up. That's how he ended up here, working as a janitor in this very company, choosing silence over explanation. Miguel knew what it meant to be judged by appearances and accents. He knew what it felt like to be powerless. So, he kept his story hidden, wearing his uniform like armor and moving through the halls unnoticed. Only a few people knew fragments of Miguel's past. There was Sarah, a kind receptionist who had once worked with him in another city and recognized him quietly. She kept his secret, respecting his choice to stay hidden. Sometimes, she left small notes of encouragement, or a kind word to remind him he wasn't invisible to everyone. Miguel's life was a carefully guarded secret, a tale of loss, resilience and hope. But the past has a way of catching up with people, no matter how deeply they try to bury it, and soon, Miguel's story would no longer be his alone. One afternoon, a young intern named Emma was sorting through old company records in the storage room, when she stumbled upon a dusty folder with Miguel's full name on it. Curious, she opened it, and found documents that didn't match the image of a janitor. There were letters of recommendation, news clippings about a former executive, and even awards for leadership and honesty. Emma was shocked. Not knowing what to do, she quietly showed the papers to Sarah, the receptionist who already knew a little about Miguel's past. Sarah encouraged her to be careful, but agreed that this story deserved to be told. Together, they started asking questions, quietly gathering more proof that Miguel was much more than just a janitor. Meanwhile, the CEO, Richard, was preparing for a major investor meeting. But word was spreading fast. Whispers about his public mocking of Miguel, and questions about his own behavior, reached journalists and investors. Some began to dig deeper into Richard's past, and found a pattern of arrogance, greed and ruthless decisions that had hurt employees and small businesses alike. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. While Miguel's story was one of resilience, honesty and quiet strength, Richard's was marked by selfishness and cruelty. Investors started to worry. If the leader of the company treated people like Miguel with such disrespect, what did that say about the company's future? News outlets caught wind of the story. Articles were written about the CEO's harsh words and Miguel's hidden past. Social media exploded with support for Miguel and criticism of Richard. The public began to see Miguel not as an invisible janitor, but as a symbol of dignity and courage. The atmosphere in the company shifted overnight. People whispered about the unfairness they had witnessed. Employees who had once stayed silent began to feel hope. Maybe change was possible. Richard, once untouchable, suddenly found himself facing questions he couldn't ignore. The story that started with a simple insult was now a powerful force, revealing truths about power, prejudice, and the strength that can hide behind the quietest faces. As the news spread, the company's investors grew uneasy. Many of them had put their trust and money into Richard's leadership. But when they learned about his cruel treatment of Miguel and his long history of arrogance, doubts began to take hold. One by one, some of the biggest investors pulled their support, fearing that the company's reputation would suffer if Richard stayed in charge. The board of directors quickly called an emergency meeting. The pressure was intense. Employees spoke up, sharing stories of Richard's harsh words and unfair decisions. The media continued to shine a harsh light on the CEO's behavior, exposing the ugly side of a man who once seemed unstoppable. Public opinion was clear: Richard's time at the top was ending. Meanwhile, Miguel's story touched the hearts of many. His quiet strength and dignity in the face of cruelty inspired people inside and outside the company. What had once made him invisible now made him a symbol of hope and resilience. People began to see him not as a janitor, but as a leader, someone who had faced hardship with courage and honesty. Recognizing this, the board offered Miguel a chance he never expected to take on a new role within the company, one where he could help guide its future with fairness and respect. It was a chance to rebuild not just his life, but the company's culture. Miguel accepted, not for power or status, but because he believed in a better way, one where kindness and respect mattered more than appearances or accents. His story reminded everyone that true strength isn't loud or boastful, it's quiet, steady, and often hidden behind the most unlikely faces. Richard was forced to step down, and with Miguel's leadership, the company began to change. What started as a painful moment of public humiliation became a turning point. A lesson that no one should be judged by how they speak or where they come from. Sometimes, the most unexpected people teach us the greatest lessons, and this was one of those moments. Miguel's story teaches us something important, that respect and kindness mean far more than the way someone speaks or the job they have. In a world quick to judge by appearances, it's easy to overlook the true value of a person. But when we take the time to look deeper, we often find strength, courage, and dignity where we least expect it. Language is just one part of who we are. It does not define our intelligence, our heart, or our worth. Miguel's journey reminds us that every person deserves to be treated with respect, no matter where they come from, or how they sound. His quiet bravery showed a company, and a world, that true leadership comes from integrity and kindness, not arrogance or cruelty. The damage caused by discrimination and unfair judgment can hurt deeply, but standing up against it can change everything. When voices rise to protect the vulnerable, when people choose to see beyond the surface, real change begins. This story is a call to all of us. Never judge a person by the way they speak, the color of their skin, or the job they hold. Look for the hidden worth inside, and remember that sometimes the strongest leaders are the ones who have faced the greatest struggles. Because dignity is not given, it is earned by how we treat each other, and sometimes, the quietest voice is the one that echoes the loudest.